Hello and happy Fat Mascara Day to all who celebrate. I'm Jessica.
Happy Fat Mascara to you. That's what you say on Fridays, everyone, because you know you're getting an interview.
I like having an interview. I want to say, I love having a podcast. There are a couple podcasts I listen to, and I love when I see it populate, especially on a Friday, because I like having a podcast right before the weekend.
Yeah, maybe you're going on a little road trip this summer weekend.
I just like having like on Fridays, I don't know, I just like having something like,
some content to take you through the weekend.
Yeah, I just like having that.
And boy, have we got it. We have Diarrha and Jaime here. Hello, I'm Collet, founder and CEO.
Now, I just want to say, for those who are deep into the Fat Mascara universe, you might know we don't often have a lot of brand founders. If you follow, like if you're good for spotting patterns, you might realize we don't have a lot of brand founders. It's not because we don't love brand founders. We're in this business because we love brands and the artistry and the creativity and all of that great stuff and the ingenuity. But sometimes it can feel too focused on one thing. It can feel like a little too focused on the brand. And we've gotten that feedback from you, our listeners. So we respond, we take notes, we take your opinions into account. So that's why we've had a little bit more like brand agnostic experts on.
Interviews about the culture or a particular area of beauty business, like an expert in permanent makeup, not someone who started a product brand.
More multi-brand experts.
Yes, agnostic.
But that doesn't mean we'll never have a founder.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to interview Diarrha, the founder of Ami Collet, because she actually had a really great story of how she got into the industry, and one that personally I was affected by her entry into the industry because it felt a little bit not like an every woman's story or every person's story, but something that I felt if you are a super beauty enthusiast, if you live and freaking die for beauty, which many of you do, but are like on the, not in a public facing way, I felt like it was very inspiring of how she got in. I think there was a lot of life lesson you can take from that. Just a lot of life lesson how you could take from her, just her career path. That's my opinion. That's what really I took away from
Guess what? You get to have your own opinion by listening to this interview and see what you think at the end.
Tell us what you think.
Yeah, a little background. Diarrha has previously worked at, we'll get into this a little bit of a resume, but Glossier, L'Oreal, Temp 2. She's based here in New York City. Like us, she's a mom of two. Like I said, she's the CEO and founder of Ami Collet. Please, everyone, welcome Diarrha to the FM studio. Diarrha, welcome to Fat Mascara. Hi.
Hi. What a pleasure. What an honor.
The honor is all ours.
Truly. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I know, because this is the first time I'm meeting you. I know you and Jess have met, but I feel like I know more about your products than you, and I know you are not your brand. So
That's a good point.
You are not your brand. That sounds so like
that's a t-shirt.
So heavy, right? Yeah, you are not your brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Oh, we'll talk about this, but that's very interesting timing that you say that.
Tell me why.
Is that what's happening at the Ami Collet offices?
Yeah, you know what it is? I think that it's so funny you say that because I'm like, I always push my team. We need to focus on product marketing. And I think like 2 to 3 years ago, it was all about the founder. And then suddenly you're not doing the work of the products and the marketing and the actual work. And then suddenly, like, you got to be on TikTok and you got to do that, And I'm like, wait, what happened?
It was all on your shoulders.
Yeah, like, what happened to the actual product and the company? But anyway, I digress.
You're like, let's talk about the product. They're like, no, it's all about you.
Yes.
You make it happen.
You make it happen. Like, what are you eating for breakfast? Like, how many times are you changing your diapers for your babies? It's interesting, and I get it. People want to know behind the brand, but I'm like, wow, there's a lot of work to do. Number one, to make a brand, but then suddenly to be the brand too. So it's an interesting situation. Even looking at the Bobbi Browns of the world, right? Like Bobbi Brown is now the brand in itself.
Yeah.
But then Jones Road, it's like Bobbi Brown back on this kind of TikTok run of just being in front of the camera. So it's interesting.
Do you want to be the brand?
You know what it is? I think that I wanted to start and create the brand from a very particular point of view because, again, like, and we'll go into this, but coming from the hair salon and my point of view of like Harlem.
Wait. What do you mean coming from the hair
Oh, duh,
salon? We don't
right?
know what you're talking about.
We're just jumping right into it.
We jumped
So,
right in. Let's get into the background. Tell us.
all right,
Yes.
yes.
That's what Jen was asking. Like,
Who am
I
I?
got sidetracked because I got excited by what she said. But yeah, what's your personal connection to beauty?
Right. I'm a salon baby. So I literally have been in the hair salon since like 89. My mom, that's when she opened the salon, like no mat leave, just on her back in the bassinet at the hair salon. So it's always been a part of our DNA, our family fabric, etc. So this is in Harlem. And if you can imagine, it's the like 125th Street is like the mecca of Harlem, like right across from the Apollo Theater and just so much culture going on, especially during the 90s. So that has always been a part of my DNA and just the undercurrent of my entire life and history. Just absorbing beauty through that way, the conversations that have happened in the hair salon. I mean, women are getting their hair braided up to like 8 hours. So you're spending all day just kind of dishing everything about your personal life and beauty rituals, etc. But a lot of that was community, just coming in. You see the same auntie that becomes like your friend and best friend. These clients that are coming into the salon, they watch you grow up. So I think I had a point of view of community mostly than like me. It's about me. It's about me. Similar to my mom, right? Like she came and didn't speak a lick of English, so had this hair salon.
where'd she come from?
So she's from Senegal, Dakar, Senegal, which is in West Africa, the most western point of Africa. She came over in the early 80s again and made her way, right? And that was the hair salon. So she, very similarly, she would provide opportunities for other women that were coming from Senegal that were kind of gaining their footing and everything from like open a savings account. This is what you do. Like this is a Metro card. Like this is how you move around. I'm happy to be your first boss in many ways, but just also just teaching them life. So she was like a very motherly kind of guidance figure, but really a host, right? Like just coming in, it was less about her and more so like how many people can I help? So that's always been a part of me as well, watching that and how far it went for you. So again, we'll get into this, but it's very interesting being on the brand side now where everything is about you, the brand founder, and getting out there, especially with platforms like TikTok where they're like expecting me to post like twice a day and also run the business.
Who's they?
That's a great question. The people. I don't know who the people are, but they're like, you
But
need to
like
be
your
out there.
founders, your investors, your
Yeah.
your buddies, who?
So mostly, I would say the community, honestly, they do want to know more about you and like who is behind this kind of brand, but also investors too. Investors want to see you out there and pushing the brand forward, which I think, it's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah. I'm getting a picture of the salon. Was this all osmosis? Was like baby you growing up? Paint me a picture.
Oh
What
my
like what
God.
were you doing at the salon? Were you working? Were you just listening?
So even to this day, I'm so bad at braids. You would think that I'm
Wait,
like
is the salon still around?
the salon is still around. My older
What's the name of
sister,
it?
I mean, that's a African hair braiding, and my older sister has now taken over. So it's still on 125th Street, still two-floor walk up. It's a little renovated now, so not the old school vibes of the salon, but me growing up, I mean, let me paint the picture. I was a hyperactive kid. My mom will tell you all the time, but just always curious and always like restless. I was in the salon, but I didn't want to sit down. So I'd be running up and down the hallways, getting her in trouble. I'd be the annoying kid that would be sitting down there for like 3 hours asking every customer, like, hi, what's your name? What do you do for work? What's in your bag? Oh my God, lip gloss? Where did you buy that?
Little journalist in the making, it sounds
love it.
like.
I'm telling you. And then again, like the salon culture at the time had tons of magazines coming in. I would secretly subscribe for my mom, like all these magazines. So I would have even like catalogs. I'd have like the Delia's catalog pop up in my hair, the hair salon. I would be on the floor collaging and just dreaming. And then, yeah, so I just, when I close my eyes and imagine, I see myself literally on the floor after school, kind of restless, trying to go home and hearing all this buzz and chatter behind me kind of getting lost in these magazines, me listening to like the fights out downstairs because there was a couple pubs on 125th Street. So like by 10 o'clock, it was just rowdy outside. just like active and just hyper curious and just light. So for me, like 125th Street at the time was like our 42nd Street. There would be like literally James Brown like concert or Michael Jackson concert happening a couple blocks down, and like Mary J. Blige on the radio and Lilia and all these things, right? So that was kind of my whirlwind and my cocoon in many a sense. So I thought that the whole world operated like this, and it was very much not that. When I went to college, I went to Syracuse University upstate. I'm like, where is my people? Like, what's going on here?
No, no,
Eh,
no,
stark
no. Yeah.
difference, stark difference.
That
So
is a culture shock, I'm sure.
it was a culture shock. So again, like I think that my dad was also a travel agent too. So I did travel pretty early. I literally as early as 7 years old, I was like out and about on these airplanes and going to visit my family, both in Senegal, and then also I had an uncle in Germany, which is weird, but he was in Germany. But it opened my eyes to realize very early on that what I thought in my point of view of beauty was not everyone's definition of beauty. As soon as I left that kind of cocoon of Harlem, I didn't see myself. Let's just say that. I did not see myself at all. And it just had me like just kind of reeling on questions like why is it that? Is it because of this? And is it because of that? What's going on? What's the disconnect there? But yeah, I think that's yeah. You can ask me more questions about like double downing on the alarm and earlier, but that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, so you had a very clear point of view on like where you came from, and then you certainly going to Syracuse, which is in New York State, but hardly New York. There's a stark difference. You got to bounce around the world, and then you entered the professional world. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. So I left Syracuse, came back, just ready to work, ready to tackle the world. I didn't land in beauty exactly like on first beat, right? I did a ton of internships, kind of trying to figure it out. Like, was it beauty for me? Was it fashion? And mind you, this is the age of like Kelly Catrone and the Hills. I'm like, oh, I'm going to work in PR. I'm going to be the next Kelly Catrone. So I came down, I actually interned at Teen Vogue and like was in the fashion closet, just archiving and kind of learning a little bit more about the magazine, what I would have when I was younger, right? And then I worked at Rebecca Minkoff doing PR there very early on. And then me, typical me, I'm like, I'm hearing something buzzing on the other side of something called social media and Twitter and live tweeting. Like, I want to be over there. So I ended up kind of segueing into social media marketing. In the beginning, I was literally ghostwriting as Rebecca Minkoff, which is very interesting. Um, imagine
Those bags and that brand was a moment,
that was
wasn't
a
it?
moment.
Like I remember those.
Those bags were so cute. I really liked Rebecca May. I think I had a Rebecca
The
Minkoff bag,
yeah,
probably
the
a
morning
press
after
gift.
bag.
Is that what they
Yes.
were called?
There was one morning after bag, and then there was another one that was a little bit more of like a flatter kind of profile that I don't remember the name
I
of.
think that's the bag I'm picturing.
Got it. It was a time. It was a time. But eventually I would land back into beauty. And I worked at a brand called Tem2. And Tem2, if you don't remember, they're like an airbrush makeup company. They're more pro artistry. So you're thinking about like high glam, high definition makeup. And I was there for a while working directly with the CMO and the founders. And I fell in love. I'm like,
Well, that
yes,
is amazing exposure.
yes, yes. And it was so nitty gritty.
Well, I was like really when we spoke and I learned about your story, I remember being like really taken by sort of how you mentioned Kelly Cutrone and like that was like really the era of the playbook of if you wanted to learn how to make it in beauty and fashion, watching just like 2 hours of MTV or E or whatever would kind of give you like this is how you do it because there were all these little like tiny girl bosses. No
Oh,
offense.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Baby girl.
Oh,
Do you know what I
yes.
mean? It was like the Lauren Conrads, the Andrew from Kelly Catrone. You
Kelly
know what I mean?
Catrone.
Like it
Yes.
was like if you have the guts and the grit, it's like
Right.
here's how you go. And you were doing it, but you had a killer break. You had
Mhm.
a killer break. Tell us about that.
All right. So,
Let's go
okay,
there.
let's go there. Let's go there. Okay, so leading into this thing that you're talking about, right? I graduated from Tem2 and I went into L'Oreal, did the thing, right? As a beauty marketer, you kind of graduate into the spaceship that is L'Oreal. And then I was like tapped out. I'm like, I'm done. I'm done. It felt too slow for me. I was just used to the grit of it all. So I quit with like no backup. I was just like, you know what? The universe is going to line me up. Very naive.
You just quit without a job.
I sure did. I quit without a job.
Wow.
I didn't even
Okay.
tell my parents because they were so proud that I made it to L'Oreal. Again, that's first
Yeah.
generation. They were like, oh my God.
I can't imagine that. I don't know them, but I can't imagine from everything I'm hearing that they would be too thrilled
They
with
weren't
that.
happy. But as the universe would have it, I randomly got an email from Emily Weiss. This was 4 years post
The
Glossier being
founder
a
of
thing.
Glossier.
The founder of Glossier.
I think our listeners know that name.
I
The
I don't
founder.
know. You could have some drop in. I don't know.
Mhm, mhm,
Listen, I
mhm.
like to identify everybody, okay?
That's
Got it,
fair.
got it.
That's totally fair. So Emily Weiss, the founder of Glossier and Into the Gloss, okay, she emailed me and it was, I thought it was like, Glossier, they're so clever with their emails and marketing. I'm like, wow, this feels really like
Oh, like when you
personal.
get an email from like Gwyneth Paltrow, like, "Hey there," or
Hey, yeah.
"What's up from the
Oh, you thought
Hamptons?"
it
Yeah.
was a marketing email. Oh, no.
So I responded, she's like,
Delete.
hey,
Trash.
hey, I have an idea. Let me know when you have time. I'd like to run this idea by you. I'm like, what? So I email her right back. I'm like, yeah, hi. Love to hear your idea. So I get on a call with her and
Where
the
were
call,
you? Do you remember where you were, like, in your
yes, I
house?
I literally do remember where I was. So again, painting the picture, I had just left L'Oreal, like literally box in hand, just sitting there like, okay, what is life now? And I'm in my kitchen in Brooklyn, in Bed-Stuy, and I'm just going through, literally looking for jobs. And this email pops up. So I'm getting this email while I'm there in like in my apartment in Brooklyn. So I respond to her really quickly, and then I think her assistant jumped in and they scheduled time. So I finally talked to her, and it took a while to get on her calendar, naturally. So I'm just raveling for like a week. I'm like, what does this lady want from me? Like, what is going on? I'm like stalking their Instagram. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So we finally get on a call, and Emily says, hi, what are you doing? Are you like hiding in the L'Oreal closets? I'm like, actually, I actually quit. So I'm at home. We're in the clear. She's like, you know what? I had this idea. Would you consider joining Glossier? I'm like, yes, of course. I'm great at social. Let's do this. She's like, no, not social. I'm thinking product development. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I'm thinking product development. I forgot the spiel exactly, but we would love to just have a point of view that's more diverse and more social forward. Again, painting the picture here. I had been doing social media marketing for at least 10 years at this point. I was I wouldn't call me psycho, but I was definitely active in the Instagram comments, just always talking to people on the disc like always connecting with people. I saw every single top shelf. I just was a reader and I was a part of the orbit.
This is the same little girl from the salon. She's just
Yes.
up in there asking questions.
So you
I
were all
love
up
it.
in the comments.
All up in the comments. Not even just on Instagram, on the actual blog. I'm like in the disc. Like
Okay.
I have an account and everything.
Wow.
So she's like, you know what if you bring that same kind of curiosity and excitement to the very forefront of PD, right? Like we're always creating products for Instagram, for social. So how about we bring that mindset and think about like what would the comment be and bring it very early on the PD process. I'm like, this lady is interesting. She's crazy because I have no idea. Like, this is such a big bet on her and on me. Okay. I'm like, but I don't know anything about product development. And she's like, you know what? We'll teach you. It'll be fine. Just come and bring that rigor and rigorosity. I'm like, all right. So I go through the entire interview process, and the interview process was pretty intense. I kid you not, I might have interviewed with 7 people IRL. Like there was no Zoom. I would like literally go to the office, come back, a next session, and everyone vetted you, and everyone had their particular thing to vet for, like a culture fit, a PD fit, and this fit. I was like, this is intense. I'm not gonna get the job. And they were very adamant, like, just because you met with Emily does not mean that you have the job. So you're going to have to do an edit test, this and that. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I did it all. And a month later, I landed the gig and I
Wow.
was there and I was excited, but like overwhelmed. I mean, this is like, they're like ringing the bell of $82 million of funding and like
It's intimidating.
pink matchas and like matcha station downstairs, fresh flowers. There's Byredo burning through the hallways. Like it was like the pinnacle, right? So I got there and I literally felt like I was, honestly, to be very transparent, I felt like I was like in the Olympics, but I had never trained. I'd never been in the gym. I
Yeah.
just was just running with the wolves, trying to catch up with times and the speed of everything. But in hindsight, I mean, at the moment, honestly, it didn't feel good because I'm like, oh my God, everyone wants to do a great job, right? But for me, I was like learning on the job, trying to understand what PD actually meant and the acronyms and the stability tests and the registration and regulatory and all these things. But I learned so much. So by the end of 2019, when I kind of put the pencil, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
How many years has you been there? Sorry, I'm trying to get
Yeah,
a
yeah.
timeline.
I think it was like 13 or 14 months. It felt like 3 years, but it was like,
Okay, so you came into Glossier when it was like humming along and
oh
okay,
yeah,
got it.
oh
Like
yeah.
at like the busy peak. Okay,
Literally
got it.
buzzing. And I had been responsible for like projects like Future Do, like trying to get like everyone on board of having Glossier skin in a bottle and like presenting it to Emily and the team and the art team, working directly with Marie. So it was amazing. It was amazing. But again, it was wild. And the supers redo, we did the whole like redo of that, making it more efficacious and larger bottles and like in-depth competitive analysis. And then I was like, okay, whoa, let's pause here. The team had looked a little bit different as well. And I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? So by 2019, I kind of put my pencil down. I went off to Thailand to find myself. I solo tripped to find, because I was
I love that.
I was head spinning.
I want to pause on that for a second because I think what you were talking about, like the Olympics and the gym example or metaphor, that's really, I think it's a very honest metaphor, and I think it's scary. I think everyone can relate to feeling like in over their head, but you really took on a challenge that was life-changing for you, and it changed the trajectory of your career, and now you have this amazing brand. What is the lesson there with you?
What did you discover in Thailand?
No, I know. What did you
The lesson of of moving. I mean, that's
Yeah.
when you could pause and think.
Yeah, like what is the lesson with this job? Because the call from
Yeah.
Emily is not a call that anyone really listening to this show is going to get, most likely. But what is the lesson with this opportunity?
You know what? I think for me,
And please don't say like, if you get a challenge, take it, because that's very obvious. You know what I mean? Like, what is it?
you know that feeling where you're literally like almost nauseous in your stomach because you're like, it almost feels like when you're about to jump off of something and like you don't know where you're gonna land, but like something about fate and something about okay, fine, again, like you will learn something. But I learned a lot about myself. I think that I was so used to being the social media expert and da da da, da and I had the playbook, but I kind of I knew that I needed to break through in a way and learn more about myself. Like, this sounds so like up there in the clouds, but it's like when you're not in your comfort space and things are gray and dark, you get to know who you are. Like, even the bad, the ugly, like when you snap, when you don't, you learn how you learn again. It's bear with me, but like when you're in school, everyone's learning at the same time, right?
Yeah.
This is the chalkboard, but when you're like you feel naked and vulnerable when you're like on the job learning like, okay, hi, what is that acronym that everyone has been using in the meeting? Like, what does that mean? And I think constantly doing that, not being afraid to fail out loud is very interesting. And it shows you who your character is, right? And I think that
Yeah.
if I did not have that kind of stretch or that kind of tension to kind of get in that uncomfortable zone, I wouldn't have had the courage to do what I'm doing now. So I think that I was able to kind of dismiss what was comfortable for me. I learned how I behave in moments where I'm super frustrated. When you're like on the bike and you want to get the training wheels off and you want to fly and you want to do good like everyone else, you kind of learn how to fail in front of everyone. And this is like again, like it was intense. Like we would have weekly meetings where everyone, all the key stakeholders would sit in the boardroom and rattle off their deliverables. Like, oh, this is that, this is this and that. If you miss one deliverable, everyone's like looking at you like, oh my God, you don't know that? Oh my God. And at the end of the day, there's a bunch of young people working
And
at
they're
the
waiting for you to.
company.
No, I shouldn't say they're waiting. I don't know. I'm not saying the glossy people are waiting for you to F up. I'm saying they're looking at you,
Oh yes.
waiting for you to, yeah.
Yeah, and you gotta remember too, to your point earlier, like not everyone gets the email from Emily. So they're like, okay, well, girl, prove yourself. Like, why you? And it was a little bit of that kind of underbelly that was happening. And it just every single day I had to prove, every single day I had to come in and not quit and kind of learn and also shift my mindset. Like, you know what? At the end of the day, whatever's going on here, I know that I will walk away with something that I didn't even know Amicole would be an actual thing, but I knew one day I would be able to build, and just to understand the mechanics of that, I will grit, I will learn, I would
When did that nugget come? When was that the tiniest spark in your head?
listen. I have always been an entrepreneur. Like I again, like speaking of like the young crazy child, my dad had a travel agencies. I would take my dad's brochures of Disney World that he would have in the front of his display. I would take it and I would literally go to school and I would sell it for a quarter. I'm like, oh, you want to know what Disney World is?
Ah!
Okay, here's a pamphlet to kind of spark your imagination.
Oh my
She's
God.
not even selling a product,
love
she's selling an
that.
An
idea.
idea. Okay, like there was no internet, there was no commercials. Everyone just
Forget the candy. She had
heard of
brochures.
Disneyland. I'm like, you want to know what Disneyland? Here you go. Here's a quarter,
Oh
and
my
only a
God.
case quarter. No, I don't need no nickels, no dimes. I only needed a case quarter. Okay, that was me. I was always doing that. And then when I would go, my imagination again, just like during summer times, my dad was like so against TVs and my whole family. So I would be out there. I would literally go out in the street and I would find leaves from the trees and I would make shoes out of the leaves and sell it to everyone that would come in the house. Like
So you were like a businesswoman from like day one.
always from day one. And I mean, again, like my mom is that way, my dad was that way. So again, it was just a part of our household. So I knew one day that I would create. But to your point specifically about Amicole, it was really at Temp 2. Temp 2, this is 2014. I was starting to think, I'm like, whoa, okay, fine. Temp 2, totally get it. They had the shades, they had the range, they had all the undertones correct, but it was so pro makeup artistry. I was like, okay, but what about the consumer? Wouldn't it be cool if da da da? So my first logo for Amicole was literally 2014, but I threw it in the backyard. I'm like, who am I?
Was that the name then that you came up with?
Amicole. That was the name. That was my mother's name. And I knew that if I were to create something in beauty, it would be named after this kind of matriarch of beauty in my world. But again, 2014 all the way to 2019, I just kept saying, like, who am I? I don't know nothing about fundraising or equity or anything. I'm not the person to create this. I was not, I didn't have a platform that was TV. I was not an influencer. So I just kept kind of hushing this dream. And I think 2019 again, I just had a breaking point. I'm like, you know what? If not now, when? And two, like, why not? Why not?
But
Like,
what was like the what was the why not moment? Like Glossier, it sounded like you were doing okay. It wasn't like they were gonna fire you or you were in the closet crying. Like, why did you say like, okay, why not now?
I just knew that what I saw, literally when I closed my eyes and saw like of a true inclusive brand, it just didn't exist.
So you were like, I gotta jump on it.
If it's not me, I've been waiting for 5 years and it's still not here. So
No one
perhaps
else is doing this. I'm going to do it.
either no one else is doing, I'm going to do it, or somebody knows something that I don't know. So let me at least try. So I think by that time, my conversations with my girlfriends, going out to brunch in Brooklyn and traveling, going to Paris and UK and Dakar, Senegal, it was still the same thing. Like my girls love YouTube. They love the Jackie Ainas of the world, but every day they were wearing minimal makeup that really kind of created the best version of skin. And I just knew that they weren't using Glossier every day. They were kind of hacking it, using a little bit of this and Fenty and mixing it with an oil and just hacking the system the whole way. But I'm like, where is our home? What's our like makeup uniform that we're grabbing and feeling really seen and comfortable with?
You're not just talking about product, I think. You're talking
Hmm.
about image, you're talking about product, you're talking about
Yes.
skin, you're talking about the whole thing.
The whole thing, the whole storytelling of
The
it as
whole
well.
storytelling, because I think
Hmm.
somebody might listen and say, well, wait a second, I have a gloss from this brand. I have foundation from Fenty. It's not that
Hmm.
these products don't exist in other lines. You're
Hmm.
talking about the world of.
Yeah, the world of where you're like truly seen and celebrated, but also even from a product perspective. When I was like doing my research on like 2019, I would say going into 2020, I just had been surveying multiple people. Literally, we surveyed up to like 400 women, and it ran the gamut, not just Black women. It was my friends from Saudi Arabia. It was my Puerto Rican friends from Harlem, et cetera, et cetera. It was like, okay, I love this, but the undertones tend to be off sometimes. So I just mix this and mix that. But there was no like, if I were to do a head to toe, not head to toe, but like a full on face of something, it would be a hodgepodge of different things. So I think even
It
from like
wasn't
a,
easy breezy.
it wasn't easy
To quote
breezy.
another beauty
No, it
brand.
wasn't.
Yeah.
Maybe she was born with it. We didn't have that kind of Nike check kind of moment with a brand that just got it first, like boom. So I think yeah, it was the product philosophy. It was the storytelling. It was the way that we lit darker skin tones. It was the way that we elevated that. I think traditionally also it was kind of giving like bottom shelf vibes. Like you would go to Dwayne Reed and you kind of got a cranky look for your shade.
I
It was either
understand.
sold out or dusty and just not elevated in a way that I knew was possible, especially coming from this world
Yeah,
where
I see
brand was
that.
everything.
Yeah, I totally see that.
When you started Ami Collet, is that all you were doing? Did you do another, I'm going to quit with nothing and see what happens? How'd you do it?
So I had a little bit of savings, but I mean, I'm going to be very transparent. Savings was like 2 months of rent. It wasn't like I was sitting on a good, like thousands of dollars, but I was consulting everyone that needed help with
Okay.
social media marketing. I was there up until my last gig consulting was actually working with Jenna Lyons, working with Love Scene and getting her prepped and primed to get out there because she was not used to the internet after such a long hiatus. But I helped her kind of get on social. So I was picking up checks here and there, asking for jobs. Literally, I was looking at my diary the other day and I had like my list of random gigs that I had and like chasing down my check as a consultant. Not the life for me. But yes, I was kind of piecing together to pay my New York City rent and like food.
All while building a brand?
Yes.
And yeah, like when you were talking about building a brand, we have so many people on the show. And honestly, if I could go back in time, I feel like I would have been a little bit more direct and be a little bit harder on people about this because I really kind of can't stand it when people are like, and then I thought of this brand, Hocus Pocus, and it's just so important to me. And then we launched in 600 doors.
I
It's like,
know.
it drives me crazy because I'm not expecting to get the real. It is kind of a personal thing, but I
Yeah.
need to know a little bit more. How did you do it? Give us like just three, because we have a lot of people in the industry and a lot of budding entrepreneurs listening. Give us three unglamorous parts to doing it.
Oof. Oh my God. I mean, I could go on. That's a whole episode in
Well,
itself. Oh
it's
my
three is more
goodness.
than some people were willing to openly
To share?
share.
Oh my God. Okay. So let's remember 2019, that's when I was like
Okay, you
consulting,
gave us
right?
the consulting, the 2 months rent, Jenna Lyons,
Right.
grinding it out.
Yeah. Yep. But after that, COVID hit, right? So I was just in incubation. I was on unemployment. I was on unemployment, and that gave me enough time, enough space to work. And then, unfortunately, at that time, my parents got really sick. So my father he had been like that first wave of New York City COVID, like the craziness in March. So he'd been a part of that first wave. So he didn't come home until July.
Wow.
So that entire time, I think, again, like, I hate to say it this way, it was really a blessing in disguise because I had zero distractions. If I was not talking to a doctor, literally searching for my father's body,
Oh my God.
I was just trying to escape through Amicole. I was like dreaming through this brand. So I had been in incubation in many a ways. And then, I went over I was living in Brooklyn at the time. I went over to Harlem to be with my mom. So she and I were in this very crazy, eerie world where we were just waking up, waiting for the doctor to hear news. Is he good? Okay, he lost a toe. Okay, fine. Is he breathing? Is he incubated? Like all of that was happening at the same time I was trying to find funding, and Black Lives Matter was happening at the same time too. So there was just a big
Mm.
moment that happened at that time that was just everything felt constricted. And
Mhm.
when that happens for me, unfortunately, this is a little toxic. I turn to work to escape. So I just kept dreaming. And I'm like, okay, what if, and I literally
No,
kept thinking,
I get it. You need to keep your mind busy.
mind busy. And I kept thinking, you know what? What if my dad survives this? What would I want to prove to him? What would I want to leave his legacy? Like, how would I show? How can I pay it forward to him? So I kept doing that and it kept pushing me, kept pushing me. So, I mean, that is very timely. I don't know if it's able for all the listeners to apply that to life, but it was not glamorous at all. And then I mean, I don't want to say I was broke, but I mean, listen, I took that credit card and I'm like, you know what? I'm going out to Cosmoprof. I'm going to look the part and I'm going to go and I'm going to knock on these doors.
Did you have samples at this point? Or are you just
No,
like,
I had a mood board.
you had like a deck, like
I
some
had a deck.
pictures?
I did have a deck.
Okay.
I just told them, I'm like, hey, after listening, this is, and no one took me seriously. Don't get it twisted.
So you got supplier meetings with your deck.
Yes.
You were passionate. Like you were fighting for your dad's life in a way with this brand. Like, I got to do this. That's passion.
There was no other option for me. And I didn't have a job, so that was my job, right? So there was no other option for me. I had to make this work. And I feel like I just had to break through. So again, took this credit card and just swiped it up, went to Vegas, had like this cranky like Airbnb that I would not recommend to anyone. I don't even know the name of it. Studio situation, and I just like hunkered down. I'm like, hey, like I heard you're gonna be here, would walk the floor, and no one took me seriously because at the time they literally had appointments with like Make Up Forever and like Fenty coming up next.
These are all the suppliers that could
Yeah.
be potentially making your packaging, your products,
Yeah.
your formulas. Yeah.
And one supplier, for some reason, her name is Tony, God bless Tony. She was like, you know what? I'm on my way to New York, but I'll meet you in the hotel lobby. I'll show you a couple of things from your brief and maybe we can work together. Until this day, I still work with the CM. They were the
Wow.
only ones that took a chance on me
That's awesome.
to say, you know what? She might be onto something. And according to how passionate she is and how organized she is with how serious she is about this deck, she might be onto something. And at the time, they had no idea I had zero funding. I had no pipeline to funding. I was just on fumes and a dream and deck. So I say all that to say it does take a level of delulu. You got to be a little delusional. You do have to be prepared. Like I was very prepared on what was the product, what SKUs, how many SKUs. Like I was organized because again, I had that experience from Glossier of like how to properly brief a CM, a contract manufacturer. But again, they would tell me like, oh, like you want to make this shade, the minimum is 2,500. I'm like, okay. I'm just like, yeah, that's easy. I'm like, I was thinking 200. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And then at the same time, with nothing, I just was documenting everything on social. I needed an outlet anyway. I had been kind of nascent to like internet and talking about beauty already. Some people had been following my journey from Temp2 to L'Oreal, Glossier, and now on my own. And they were entertaining me, honestly. I think they were being very nice. They were like, oh, you're going to do a pack? That's cute packaging, girl. Let's go with that package. A lip gloss. Oh, okay, let's get that. And then when it actually came to fruition a year later, they're like, holy crap, like you were serious. And then I surprised myself too, because I'm like, wow, like I did this out loud on the internet. I kind of gathered my tribe and the day ones. And then that also attracted investors. They saw that I was building something, had some traction, like on, I think it was like a birdie.com feature. Like, this lady is working on something. We can't wait. I'm like, I'll take whatever
This lady
I can get. Okay, I'll take whatever I can get. So I just kept using it. I was learning on the fly. I was just, I think, again, because I was failing so out loud at Glossier, I was okay to do it here. And I'm like, you know what, worst case scenario, I'll get a job probably at L'Oreal or Estee and just settle down, and stop dreaming so big. But in the meantime, everything's fair game.
Were those your first customers? Those people had been following the
Yes.
journey? Did you find that they did then become a customer?
Yes.
Yeah, because they felt invested,
Yeah,
huh?
totally invested. So by the time that we launched, we had a waiting list of like 6,000 people.
That's awesome.
So those waiting lists are real, is what you're telling me.
It's a real thing. I mean, before. I don't know about now.
Right, okay, in the year of 2020. But like, sometimes I'm with these waiting lists, I'm like, is that real? Are there that many people? And they sell out and they make the waiting list the marketing story.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, yes, I do know what you mean, and it's a technique. It's the supreme
Ami Cole's
model.
are real people.
I mean, I'm not that creative. I'm like, I need everybody to buy this. So if it's sold out, it's really sold out. I'm not waiting on. I'm not sitting on inventory. But it's the supreme model, right? You kind of get this exclusivity. You're in and you're not, and it's just a psyche game. I'm not that creative. I just want to create good products and push it out. So at that time, I didn't have anything else because I just, honestly, people were just fed up with me talking all the time. So I'm like, okay, let me at least direct them to something. Because I've been talking about this for a year now and they haven't seen anything. They're like, girl, where's this brand?
And to go back to the question I asked at the beginning, like you're obviously very involved in the beginning as like follow my journey. Are you still really comfortable being the face of Ami Cole? Like at the beginning, it was like your journey. You are the brand. Follow me. I am the brand. Now, how much of you, and we've asked this of founders before, because I think it's always a relevant question, Are you and the brand one and the same still?
Yes and no. So again, just painting the picture, back then that was the only job. There was no like team that I had to regulate. There was no like, oh, behind the scenes. Like my job was to build the momentum and I treated it as such. But now there's front of house, there's back of house, there's hiring, there's firing, there's investing, there's fundraising, there's supplier conversations, there's retail conversations. So I think right now the tension is how much can you afford in terms of time and bandwidth to be able to be so forward facing to not do the work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I think there's that part. And honestly, personally, I have two under two. I have two kids. So, now I have this munchkin that's not sleeping at night, and then this other one that's hyperactive during the day, and then I'm working full time, and then you're doing all these meetings, and then don't forget the TikTok. I'm like, oh my goodness.
No, because you're CEO and founder, and we've seen at some other
Yes.
brands. That's hard to maintain for a while. That's two full jobs.
Oy.
Three. Because don't, yeah,
Well, and
yeah,
then the mom, I'm
then
not
the
even, and then
mom,
all the
yeah.
other, yeah.
So it's
So, like
hard.
five. Just
Five
yeah.
jobs at the same time. It's so hard. And I think that for a long time, I've been trying to find that kind of partner to come in as like president role to be behind the scenes so I can be able to make sure that I'm not doing everything at the same time because it's not sustainable. It's not viable. But that person is such a unicorn to find the right person. Because what ends up happening, you go to the Estes and the L'Oreals, and they're just so high level, right? But startup is a different beast. The problem that you're solving changes every single day, and there's a level of agility and nuanceness and like just savviness that you need and grit that you need to be able to make real time decisions. Like you don't have a month to figure out what the next pipeline is. Like you got yesterday, so I need you to get into it, right? So I've hired people and then their head is spin. I'm like watching their head spin. I'm like, yeah, babes, that's a Tuesday. Welcome. So it's really hard, but I think that my goal for Amicole was never like I didn't name it after me, right? I named it after my mother because I knew the community that she fostered and people that literally are gray haired right now and still coming to get their hair done at Amicole. I mean that's African hair braiding. There's something about that salon, the shop, the affinity, the kind of familiarity and just the family feeling there that people love. So, like, how can I, as a brand creator and founder, harness that energy of community? How can I pick this up and have it live in context in UK where everything is kind of community driven and we're sharing and we're talking? That's the goal for
Wait,
me.
you just said in UK, not like United Kingdom.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Because you've said a lot of acronyms. I was like, I don't know about
Oh,
acronyms.
really?
PD, I know is product development, but in UK, like as you
As we
build the brand.
expand,
Yeah. Okay,
exactly.
got
Like
it,
as
got
I
it,
go
got it.
into different territories, how can I get off the wheel of preaching out there? Like I think there's a level of DNA and understanding where we come from, but I would love in my world to, and I know Bobby Brown's not the best example because I know that kind of divorce story was not the most glamorous, but like that brand still stands the test of time, though it's a namesake. So how do I create that energy to be able to have it community centric, but me be the host of the party?
Which of those 20 jobs would you not give up? Like, which are you closest to? Is it still the PD? Because that's kind of where you came from, the social media, because you also came from
Right,
there.
right. Oh, what a good question. PD drives me. Like I can be on fumes, but if you give me a sample, baby, I can go into
Stop
four.
everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Susie and I, she's our head of PD. She comes from Nourish and she comes with Fenty. And I think she has a particular rigor too because she was with Rihanna at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if anyone knows, but Rihanna's always late.
And I know she only works I shouldn't say she only,
At
but
night.
she works at night.
She's like, oh. So being in the trenches
That
and
sounds
seeing
fun.
and swiping, I think, yeah, not for me, but the energy of creation and trying to figure out, I think the just the beauty archives and like the oohs and the ahs of that. I feel like a kid every time we're doing PD because I have so many ideas. That fuels me and I do love community. I do love talking to people and relating to them. And it fuels me in a way because business is hard, like hard work. And sometimes you almost forget that there's a customer on the other side because there's so many stuff that you got to kind of get to be perfect to then send out. But then the customer receives, and then you get this DM like, girl, like, how did you do that? Like, oh my God, this is so great. And I did this. That fuels me
Are
too.
you still replying to people on Instagram? Are you still like that active on social?
So I am, but there's two accounts. So we have the By Amicole account, which is more the brand account, and then I'm on my own account.
And you actually reply to people?
Oh yeah. It's bad. Because I'm like breastfeeding at 2 o'clock in the morning, like, hey girl,
Okay.
look good.
And then also like really, if you were to start this again, because you went in very organic, very not naive, because I do think you're very smart. I think you're very shrewd about all this. But really, if you were doing it again, what would you do differently?
Right now, it's hard because I know why I did it and I know that it was necessary. But I just feel like the VC model, and this is super controversial because I'm VC backed, the VC model, I don't know if it allows for like timeless, carefully curated, slow build brands. It's like if you're not exploding on TikTok, everyone's sad. So it's like you're chasing you're chasing the next PO, you're chasing this, and then by the time you look up, you gotta raise again, and you then are moving away from the company for 6 months because you're not able to do what you gotta do because the VCs and all the things to keep the lights on for the company. And I wish I bootstrap, but I didn't have the money to bootstrap. When it comes to cosmetics, most it's not
Gotta
like
put in an
one.
order.
Yeah, it's a big order. Like the first initial order is pretty hefty.
Who is bootstrapping right now? Like who is
Yeah, that's a good question.
like who is not? I just struggle to think about.
Brands that are in Sephora that are bootstrapped.
Yeah.
I mean, even the brands that are like I think for now, Sable Labs, for instance, they might be bootstrapped, but like Idris Elba, it's like the
That's some good
celebrity.
bootstrapping.
I was watching the Ralph Lauren documentary and he was like, "Oh, we bootstrap and I just use $100,000 from my savings." I'm like, "Babes, what? I never made that in my whole life. My whole career, I didn't make that." So who is bootstrapping is a good question.
The word bootstrap makes me like laugh when you talk about
Yeah,
these
and
figures.
listen, yeah, we're bootstrapping, or like my dad had a vineyard, so I was able to kind of use the leftover grapes to make this. I'm like, that's amazing, but homegirls from Harlem, and we're trying to make it work. So
Or they say friends and family, and it's like we got friends and family round for like $8 million.
my like what? My friends and family at the time, like my dad's friends, are like, sorry, they were driving cabs, like they were like trying to trying to make it work. So I think not that I regret it, but I do think that there's a payoff that you're trying to chase all the time. And sometimes it can be really distracting from the
So
company.
maybe we wouldn't change your choice. We'd change the system because the system is what made you make that choice. You know
There's
what I
so
mean?
many systems I'd love to change because I think even then, and I talk about this ad nauseum with my kind of founder friends, it's just like this world, especially when it comes to big dollar and just the United States in general, like everything is down to a P&L. You know what I mean? The systems behind it, I think there was a huge equity and the diversity conversation that happened a couple of years back. But then I'm like, okay, fine. You bring in 100 brands that are Black owned or BIPOC owned into these spaces, these mammoths that is like the Sephoras of the world, the Ultas, the Targets, but no one's really talking about that $15 million chargeback that you might get, or the 100K shipping fees that you need to pay, or shipping. So all those systems that were in place, like they're not set up for you to thrive on these shelves. So what's ended up happening, I think we're definitely, I can speak for many people, is that we're feeling the crunch of like, wait, we're here on shelf, but everything behind shelf is still business as usual, and they're not set up for me to thrive here. So what does that mean? And what ends up happening is that you're building the company, you're building the brand, you're bringing the customer in because let's be realistic, the customer probably was not shopping there. Everyone's trying to get that customer in there. And then you're getting this customer to then trust this brand to come shop you. And the homework that you have to do is so taxing and so heavy and time consuming that you end up not finishing quote unquote on first place or trending top 10 brands at Sephora because the systems are not regulated. The milestones are not set in the right cadence, right? So I think that we're all feeling that grunt right now, unfortunately, and we're trying to, in real time, perform, but also change the system behind us.
So it's not in name only. Like we've diversified and included, but then we just leave you out to do it the rest yourself. There's like a support system in place.
In place,
Kind of what
yeah.
I'm hearing. Yeah, like not just a grant. Don't just give me a grant. I want the couple months of like support and how to do it and all that other stuff.
And
Not that you
honestly,
got a grant, but you know what I'm
no,
saying.
yeah, I hear you. But I think honestly, I don't think anyone knows the answer yet because no one's actually paused to actually figure out like how to. I think that we've seen the numbers like, oh, we've got to fix this, and everyone's kind of jumping up, but there's no kind of long-term strategy about like, okay, let's work backwards from now. Like if the industry is here in 25 years, how do we then kind of create systems and pipelines for these brands or the brands to come to be able to get there? But what's happening is you look left and right and these brands are shuttering. We have Beauty Bakery that's making 15 million and overnight done. You have Ioma Beauty. I don't know. I think they're no longer. You have Minty Cosmetics and all these brands that I've kind of grew up with. You're turning left and right and it's feeling lonely and very scary because it's not like they weren't doing a good job. Of course, there's like testing and learning, trying to, like any company, testing and learning, but you get like one chance to make it perfect. And if you don't strike that match or go viral or this and that, you're kind of left to the, like, oh, we tried you, but it didn't work.
Yeah. What a marathon.
My head is spinning.
You signed up for a marathon.
Naively. Very naively. I was watching too much MTV.
Ah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. There is also still a beauty of being able, again, to have those one-to-one connections. Like the messages that I get, they're like, they make you want to. I literally was crying last week. I was hormones too, but I was crying last week. I'm like, oh my God, this is why you remember why you created it.
What was the message that made you cry?
It was actually a guy, right? And he is an influencer. He's a straight black male influencer making waves in himself and his orbit and kind of pushing so many different cultural norms, I would say. And he did a reel and it was just like, you know what? I don't even wear makeup, but I want to tell you, like, I know firsthand from my point of view how hard this girl is working. Like, I know that there are systems behind her that she's not talking about. I know that the way that I see my community show up and use her lip gloss out in a while, like, I just want to give her flowers, right? And I just boohooed cried
I
because it's
love
like, again,
that.
he didn't have to do that. Just fighting different battles in different kind of sections of the industry, but an industry that we love so much. And there's just so much space for everyone. So I think that at that time, it just made me boohoo cry because I was on the verge.
Yeah.
I was on the verge. Yeah, it was hard. It's still hard, but I'm still very grateful that I even get to do this.
We're doing a great job.
We're
Oh,
grateful
thank
too because the
you.
products are good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So before we let you go, we're going to do our Fat Mascara 5. This is lightning round. What was the first beauty product you fell in love with?
Oh my God, it's the L'Oreal Paris, the black and gold.
Voluminous.
Yes, voluminous.
We got you.
Voluminous mascara.
It's
Yes.
great. Still great. What is the most surprising song on your playlist?
I'm embarrassed to say I'm not going to say that one.
I think that's the one we want. I think that's the one we want then. Just give us that one.
I'm
Unless it's like
sorry.
Baby
I'm
Shark or something.
sorry.
I don't
No,
know.
it's not Baby Shark. It's unfortunately. Well, oh, so you said playlist, right? Not something that I'm listening to.
No, something you're listening to.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't know why my playlist keeps serving me Sexy Red. I'm embarrassed.
Why are you
I'm
embarrassed?
sorry. I'm sorry.
The algorithm
Because
did
it's
it.
crazy.
It wasn't you.
It's because you know why I'm embarrassed? Because I don't want my kids listening to that song. That's why I'm embarrassed.
There's no wrong answers here. Okay, what was the last text you sent?
The last text I sent was to my husband. I love you.
Oh, sweet.
He's abroad, so
Okay. What is your favorite, most indulgent snack?
Hot fudge brownie, like a really chewy one, hot and
With
warm.
ice cream?
Yes, vanilla bean.
Delicious. Now I'm craving it and it's 11:47 a.m. Okay. Not too early.
Yes.
Okay. And then finally, what is the skill you wish you had?
I wish I was like a finance whiz, like building Excels and doing like the,
Could be helpful.
could be helpful. I wish I was able to, because my sister, she's able to kind of create like these dynamic timelines and so forth, building actual equations
Yeah.
and stuff. I wish I was better at that.
Okay, well, thank God you have a sister who is.
And a finance CFO, that
I
is
was
too.
gonna say, yeah.
Aw.
We
Yes.
can't do it all.
You built a brand instead. That's pretty good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, congrats on all your success. Thank you for taking time. Now I really want to get off the line with you because
Oh,
I know how
no.
busy
Yeah.
you are. But we really appreciate you coming on Fat Mascara. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you guys so much.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
It's your reviews and feedback that help us make the podcast even better. Head over to iTunes to rate and review us or email your thoughts to info@fatmascara.com.
We also want to answer your beauty questions and hear what products you love. To share a Razor One product review or to ask a beauty question, email us at info@fatmascara.
If you send it as a voice memo file, we can even share your voice on the podcast. You can also do that by leaving us a voice message. Our phone number in the United States is 646-481-8182.
Thanks so much for listening.